Okay, I think we can begin now. So, a philosophical question. We are discussing the economy, business, and we're growing our capital. But big question: can we enjoy this for many years, or will we just be replaced by the next generation? And our generation is now facing this question increasingly because science has built up a lot of information. It is not applicable immediately. It's now that's why we have several speakers in this studio who are going to discuss what's possible, what's impossible. Interesting facts and interesting data. Could you please bring my slides up on the screen? I would like to welcome Oleksandr Koliada, our geneticist, a scientist in longevity, Thomas Hach, who is from Novartis, the division that's concerned with precision medicine, and Tatiana Tatarchuk, our professor of gynecology. She's going to also speak about some of the things that one of the sexes should learn from the other. And James Ehrlich from Stanford. I know that it's very early there. I hope you can hear us well. James, can you hear us? That's my presentation. This is my favorite slide. It's showing our path before we learn what harmed us. It's not only a healthy lifestyle, it's seeking medical help in time. It's vaccinations is now helping us overcome the ongoing pandemic. And it is knowing your own unique features of your own health, and it's just that our immunities are very different from person to person. Lots and lots of genes and metabolomics, whether we have sufficient nutrients. And the more we learn, the high chance we stand of increasing our life expectancy to 100 years and beyond. We all futurists, and we all like predicting the future. Can we do something precise to increase life expectancy by a significant factor? And what could stand in the way? Is the planet ready to embrace this change within our lifetimes? An interesting study was conducted. It was not a study in 2018. Mathematicians made their calculations, but 2040 we will have earned another 7 years of additional life expectancy, not as much through our own efforts, because obesity will continue to plague us and other conditions, but medicine will leapfrog into a new state to increase life expectancy very significantly based on science. But last year, 2020, showed us that we started losing some of our life expectancy to the pandemic. It has not had any tragic consequences to the entire population, but the next pandemic, that is not the last pandemic that will befall us. We can basically, they thwart all those fine projections created by researchers. And the first question goes to Oleksandr Koliada. Can you tell us, our longevity, is it the product of what? It's this successful symbiotic relationship with those good germs, or our ancestors who did something right, or healthy lifestyles? What needs to change to increase life expectancy? What to do about it? Well, we are looking at our longevity. We are very closely exploring it. Some 20 years ago, medicine was different. We are happy that we live in times of different criteria. 20 years ago, we wanted a pill against each particular disease. We knew where to search for a pill against TB, Alzheimer's, cancer. We continue this rat race, but it's the idea that is increasingly uh, becoming popular. There is something in common between all those things that kill us, and it's aging. If you open Wikipedia, in terms of risk factors, this is a term that existed for 60 years. What is the risk of contracting a disease from coronavirus to Alzheimer's and other any cancer? It's always age, but it's not the age that you see in your passport. It is the age, the bigger biological age, because you build up certain residues and in your system, and it causing various diseases. And if we begin by learning to drive aging process, at least to find a way to slow down aging, we will have found the key to all diseases. Now, it's if we, in terms of cardiac disease, a 60-year-old actually goes back to the age of 10. They do not have cardiac arrest, they do not have cancer or a brain disorders. If we deceive the cells into believing that they're younger than they actually are, in terms of our toolkit that we currently have is advanced research. There is nothing, no other basis than advanced science. It's not that a technology will come down from the sky, or a scientist invents a universal pill, or we find some herb that will heal us and cure all diseases. No, it's a separate story. But the idea that we will find a source of infinite longevity, that is not a very high chance. It's all through research, through science. Each will contribute a building block to the entire system. We are now looking at health, lifestyle, technologization. So that if we can personalize healthy lifestyle, drink more water, do your morning jog, to not be nervous or something, have enough sleep and eat healthy foods like apples. How many? And we are opening up this page on personal healthy lifestyles. We find that it works a lot better if it is fine tuned to the needs of the individual. And the next thing is to improve therapy. We are looking for not generic drugs in terms of treating a disease, but to prevent a disease. And when we found that some drugs that are used against Alzheimer's, there's every reason to believe that that particular drug is slowing down aging and it's slowing down the metabolic processes accompanying various pathologies. Maybe when nature created us one day, so if nature forgot to build in the metformin molecule, we would live a longer life. And those drugs are being developed, and if they senolytics and excessive glycation inhibitors, and those drugs that help reprogram stem cells, we will have developed an instrument of prophylaxis, which will be very powerful. And then genetic therapy, when we are looking to identify the genes that extend life expectancy, and we embark on expeditions to find those genes. Like people, like they are compulsive smokers. They eat 5 buckets of sugar per day. They move very little. They drink alcohol. They still clear the 100-year boundary and seemingly good health. And their secret is that they know something. It's their gene pool that they got as a gift from evolution. If we learn to identify those genes, and we're able to plant those genes in another organism, we can create a GMO salmon or cucumber. We will be curing various diseases using genetic therapy with one pill to do something to help a child, a young person, for them to get a shot and increase their life expectancy. Those are three areas where longevity and neuroscience development. Will we see this within our lifetime? Or is it for posterity? There is this law of gerontology that a rejuvenation, as such, is not something we could expect to happen when somebody is selling us anti-aging creams and all that. So that's not the kind of aging that we've seen in sci-fi films. But to slow down aging is quite achievable. So the paradigm is that if we practice healthy lifestyles to reach 2035 and good shape, by which time we'll have developed genetic therapy to such a degree that we can use it to treat humans, but we need to do everything we can now to stay healthy until the time, and then scientists now working to create mechanisms to slow down aging in the next. So the best strategy is to go into a state of deep freeze and then wake up in around 2030. Cryobionics. Yeah, this is a good idea, but it's not represented in Ukraine. That's another hoax. And it's a very expensive funeral, if you will. But there are lots of freezing technologies. Now, what we're lacking is unfreezing technologies. That's what's lacking. So it's not the best of ideas, but to pursue a healthy lifestyle is a good idea, but it's coming from the people. Government regulation has a role to play too. Because a good idea of like in taxation, while it's related, it's if when taxing junk food, if we imposing excise taxes on alcohol, by why not impose a tax on high fat, high sugar foods that Dubai has done and other countries have done, and then use this as a source of financing that research? Because if it's actually having a healthy body is a motivator, but it's like the carrot, but we need the stick too. One more question to you. Aging. Well, it's part of NKB11. So will slowing down investment impact investment in research? So there is a list of conditions that gets updated once per 10 to 15 years. And this includes a list of conditions that are treated with public funds. That the homosexualism is one of those some years ago. Now, recently, that we have some conditions related to aging. Chronic fatigue related to old age. So now we can commission research and test drugs to treat that particular condition. Look, there is an opportunity to invent something to extend the human life. So things that don't even want that, because actually life's so boring they don't know what to do with the time they have, let alone another 20 years. But the older we grow, then the more valuable time becomes to us. It's okay. Artificial intelligence is there, but we are not ready to worship it. But human intelligence and genius is something that we have worshipped and will continue to worship. Now, look, those great inventions that people, the likes of Einstein, or if they were not if they did not die when they did, and give them another 20 or 100 years of productive life. So what works of art and inventions could come from that. So extending life expectancy is not something as for you to live longer to watch another season of your favorite show, but this is a catalyst of all processes on this. Like, all I go, now you have a longer life expectancy, go spend another decade working or something. But it's but older people have the pastimes. You will remember the conference in the US on aging and things that activities for older people. They have so much experience as they may not have the skills to work on a smartphone, but there are other skills that they and experience that they bring to the table.
You are recently engaged in the field of precision medicine. It's highly speculated now in media, and I wonder, does it mean what we are not able to learn big data without artificial intelligence? And if so, are we losing our dominant position right now as a humanity? Here you are.
So that's an excellent question. And since I knew roughly what was coming, right, I have prepared a few slides. Can I have my presentation, please? And be prepared. I'm going to ask you a few questions as well. So,
It's your first slide. Malevich.
what was that? Horses? 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 Well, so look, this is where I'm going with personalized medicine or precision medicine. The answer is not so obvious, right? What you just heard was zebras. And the funny thing is, right, it may have been zebras like this one. There is a few other zebras that we have in an ideal world. If we can move the slides. They look like this, right? You individualize your treatment or your behavior to those zebras. But we have some outliers in terms of zebras as well when we look at the normal distribution, because I think zebras could also look like this, albino zebras, right? There are some very special zebras like this. Looks nice, doesn't it? Well, not sure these zebras exist, but maybe someone of you has a zebra like this at home. And what I really want to say, we are all different, yeah? I'm now at Novartis and I'm doing research and I look at patient engagement, how do we involve patients more, how do we do personalized treatment. But when I was still in clinical practice, I learned that you need to treat people differently. Even if they have the same disease, the same lab values, you don't treat the lab values, you treat a human being. Yeah? You don't treat the disease, but you treat the human being. And this is very, very important. And there's a couple of things I want to guide you through very quickly. Currently, we have something that I would call imprecision medicine. Because what you see here is how many people you need to treat to have success. The red ones are where it doesn't work, and the blue ones you see are the ones where the drug really works. And there's a lot of people you treat without any real effect to only have one person where it really works. That is a few years old, but it hasn't changed much. The treatments are still quite imprecise. And I think there's an opportunity, and forgive me, right? There's a few cells of pictures of neurons, right, and the brain, because I think this is what we need. What we have to do is we need to look at personalized biosignatures. This is an example. I'm a diabetologist, endocrinologist. This is an example from multiple sclerosis, where I did research on. Neurodegenerative diseases are increasing. And what we did is we looked at what biomarkers do you have to characterize the person. And the biosignatures are different, very different from person to person. The beauty and the problem is, in blue in the middle, you see what is already proven. If you go further to the outside, you see the speculative biomarkers, which we may have proof and evidence for in 5 or 10 years. But that's what we have to do, right? Everybody has a specific biosignature that we need to read and understand and then draw the consequences. And this is complex. And we'll come to digital and the AI and machine learning solutions because that is an opportunity we may have. Now, or if you were guessing, that was a bronchus. But there's other things in terms of tailoring it to the person. This is, quite a sophisticated publication summarized. It's very simple. Dogs make you walk. And this is from one of my patients where I wanted to really say, you need insulin as a diabetologist, bad glucose control. The solution was a dog for that person, right? I tried insulin at least, let me think, maybe 5 times or so. I even had my insulin pen for him. And I said, look, it's very easy, small needle. No. His wife suggested a dog. The dog made him lose weight. His glucose control, his diabetes was in perfect shape. And these are the solutions we don't often enough think about. I'm not saying that a dog is a solution for everybody, but we sometimes think textbook. I learned that. Medical guidelines. I have never seen a dog in a medical guideline. I had to dig deep, right, to find this. So what I'm saying is, we as doctors, we need to check for each and every person, and we need to think big. That's why I think the GPs are probably the best people because they know their patients very well. And I mean, if you're a patient of Nadiia, then you're lucky because she really thinks holistically. And I think this is the most important piece. Now, I very quickly want to say this is the totality of data that we have. Genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, right? I can't make sense of this all. But there's one thing how I would like to bring it all together. What's missing is the patient voice, yeah? So you need to talk to the people and understand the people, what they really want, because I think the most important thing that I have learned is it is not about adding years to life, right? If you let people live longer, that's not always the most important thing if they don't have a good quality of life. It's about adding life to years, right? So quality of life may be more important than the longevity. And if we have the opportunity to maybe live 120 years, it better be with good quality of life. Now, the last thing I wanted to share with you is this review, which I can highly recommend from the New England Journal. Basically, it says machine learning is great. We have a lot of data which we can't really comprehend. But at the same time, you need the human touch. You need the doctor-patient interaction. You need a trusted relationship and informed decision-making. Now, if you add artificial intelligence, that leads to personalized, really good, optimal care, I call it. And with that, I would like to conclude and say thank you and move on. I hope the answer was short enough.
Yeah, short enough. But I have one more question. Let's fantasize about future, how you can foresee it. I'm going to chemistry and chatbot would talk to me and say, lady, this aspirin is not suitable for you, you're not responder. Or, for example, much more better, this ginkgo biloba may kill you for sure. How we will solve this problem? There will be no pharmacist, or where will be a personalization?
So I think the examples you gave are perfect examples because they are real. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are people where aspirin doesn't work, and where ginkgo, people think, oh, that's good for my brain. For some people, it may just not be good. It will help, right? You have the markers, and your computer can tell you much better than the pharmacist. I would advocate, we need this. This is a very good solution, but you should always have a human being have a look at this, because sometimes machines come up with algorithms and with answers and solutions that just don't make sense. So I love chatbots, machine learning, but you need to do two things. You need to develop the algorithm with experts, with humans, to test and double check. And then when you have a recommendation that can impact a person's life, you better talk to a real person.
A real doctor. Thank you so much. Татьяна Феофановна, у меня к вам вопрос очень простой, который интересует.
I have a very simple question to you that half the audience is probably interested in. In any country, irrespective of wealth, of its level of development, irrespective of social status, the girls live longer lives than the boys. How so? I've looked at some stats, and even countries that are pretty low on longevity, but the gap is quite large. Hong Kong, now it's with the average life expectancy at 85, and Central Africa with 65. It's a 20 years variance. So as Sasha once said, the best thing you can do to extend your life expectancy is to move from a bad country to a good country. So look, whatever we do, then are we supposed to change everything in favor of women? In terms, we probably know this better than anyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. This is very interesting. That I will try and hook into some of the statements Alexander makes in terms of messages, some things that extend life, and how men react to them versus women, how they react and how it actually impacts the state of their bodies. But whether we like it or not, the hormones are different, and that is also quite an important consideration to make. So healthy lifestyles. Alexander said that there's potential in a healthy lifestyle. Both men and women are trying to use this principle, and we have lots of men in this audience too. A lot of women, a lot of men. What are the men present here doing here? Mostly they do weightlifting. This is mostly, it's power lifting, it's what they do to exercise. It's important for a man to show his muscles. What do women do? Yoga, Pilates, stretching exercises, dancing. So, okay, let me start from the hormones, which is my profession, and in clinical medicine and in science. We all know that there are hormones: estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, male testosterone. We all think that testosterone is responsible for libido. That is not quite correct, as recent research shows, and then we understand that we all think that the male organism, estrogens, do not play an important role. That is no longer considered to be true. And the genitals that generate, that produce hormones, we know that the duodenum that produces insulin and metformin, that okay, this is a great geroprotector, but we need to become less emotional, because emotions create dopamine resistance and then insulin resistance, and insulin resistance creates hyperinsulin. So it's all these words that are in fact are quite well known, widespread. So if we know about metformin, that we know that too. So that insulin, so it appears that, okay, it is burnt up in a gym. Why the intrigue? Why Pilates and weightlifting? We have one more part of those glands that produce hormones. We have those glands, those other glands, the adrenal glands, unless we overburden our adrenal glands, and that's what we call emotional detox, if we let them have a rest, not to have to produce androgens, the hormones of war, when male glands cannot produce so much testosterone, but that the adrenal glands also help because men are always at war, they're fighting all the time. But by about 50, they should take over and begin playing a key role. And if men learn to relax and to do stretching exercises, I remember speaking about there is one more very lazy gland that men should learn to agree with, and that's men not be particularly good at it. What's good about gyms? It's when you burn off that excessive insulin. It is good. It's good. And then the gym works instead of metformin, but okay. What the endocrinological importance of fat tissue, everyone knows it. When fat, it accounts for 30% of the body mass, it turns into malignant tumor. You should stay clear of that hurdle. If you've allowed fat to reach 30%, it's going to eat into your vessels, into your brain, or the whole your energy potential will be feeding your fat issue. It's a very important piece of your endocrine system. But there is another important endocrine organ, bones. Who knew that? Who of you knew this? The bones have a role to play as an endocrinological organ, and this is basically what those acupuncture and other massage techniques work. So how it works? There is no empirical data. How come you feel better after that type of massage? Because the bone is the laziest of the endocrinological. It produces osteocalcin, and it stimulates the production of testosterone in men and women. And testosterone, it gets the stimulating effect, and it without an oxidation stress effect, without hypoxia, testosterone extends your youth and your life expectancy. In men, the testosterone that men have will work to extend life expectancy if men learn to manage their stress. If they have enough technologies that remove the oxidizing effect, vitamins, omega-3, and all these things that we can talk about. That is not my purpose here. Let me go back to women and the bones. The bone begins to operate as a gland when the super osseous part begins to be irritated. We need to direct your action towards that top layer. If we speak about the difference in behavior, that women are more prone to maintaining healthy eating habits, but women are more responsible by nature when it comes to their health. Let me move on to the next point. Why women live longer lives? It's because they seek medical advice more often. They undergo screening. To make a man undergo some sort of screening or a checkup to determine their PCA. Now, there are lots of men here in this. I'm a gynecologist. It's a rare sight for me. It's not an audience that I'm accustomed to. Now I see those grateful eyes. So all you should do is undergo an oncomarker for prostate cancer. But prostate cancer is curable. You can live a long and healthy life if you catch it early and treat it, but you need to take this test. And I keep telling gynecologists, but tell your patients to invite the lab home and make their husband have their blood work done. And when they reached 50. Cholesterol and proteins and other tests, all important tests, the most elementary and basic ones, as Oleksandr is going to speak about something more advanced, about the future. I'm talking about the reality of today, something that can be done. It's what could possibly extend male life expectancy if they catch a pathology early, because men normally report for treatment with conditions in a pretty advanced stage than women. Men feel that they're sort of ashamed of this. How come? I'm strong, I'm a hero, I'm successful. I'm not a patient. But catching a pathology early prevents it from becoming a disease. And number three is hormonal variances. It's nature. It's built the female body that estrogen serve as a strong protector against vessel degradation. It's atherosclerosis and prophylaxis of that, prophylaxis of endothelial function, the healthy level of estrogen as osteoporosis. So nature itself, well, nature actually is built it very smartly. You can't overcome nature. You can only negotiate with it. And a scientist, a gerontologist, they are there to help all of us in this important negotiation with nature to negotiate a lengthier life. We can't overcome nature, but we can negotiate with. That's why estrogens is good. Does the male organism have them? Absolutely. And they aromatize through fat tissue. And you see what happens over time as a man, grows more mature. I don't want to use the word grows older. They do not lose their reproductive capabilities, which women do, whether we like it or not, whether we think it is fair, but it happens. But in men, it is never lost. Men have some up to 45. It's actually androgens arising. Then 45 to 50, there is a decline in androgen, and then it plateaus at a very slow pace. And during this slump, when it degrades very quickly, over a period of 10 years, men begin experiencing problems. It's the strokes, heart attacks, emotional imbalances. When I'm among friends, and if I keep telling them, so if you think that you need to find a new job at around 45, 50, you need to change things, look at your testosterone dynamic. Maybe it's your testosterone affecting your emotions. You feel you need to leave your family and you've met the love of your life. Look at your testosterone dynamic. You can change things in this hunt for higher testosterone, like at 50, at 40 actually. Estrogens began declining gradually at 50 and then 50, and then they continue declining. And for men, it's important to survive this period, not to end up with a stroke or break a leg or create a revolution in their life that they will not survive. This is another hormonal explanation. When my husband's friend once told me, look, thank you for telling me this, because I've helped so many friends just to analyze the hormonal transformations. This is another component to it. And number three, that's probably last thing, is that we are looking for a gene of rejuvenation. Yes, by some 2050, cancer will have been defeated, and there are very valid projections that we have lots and lots of drugs that we then we have so many types of cancers that are not terminal. Like, okay, in oncology, maybe the ovaries and that cancer may be terminal, but science has been making very good progress in this, and it's important to, as we look for those fine conditions that Alexander spoke about, uh, and those genes that encode Alzheimer's and other genes. If we ever have a way of changing that, it will give us another chance. But in terms of what could also, we also should bear in mind that psychosomatic conditions are still out there. Women are better at hearing and listening, and they have more faith in the treatment process. Men find it very difficult to make them believe that they're going to heal. So in this context, before I'll tell you the story of Ibn Sina. Avicenna. You know how he became the famous doctor? He once was a very talented young man. He lived in Bukhara, in a suburb close to Bukhara, and he was interested in medicine. He was interested in science, and he needed to obtain books. It was a big challenge to gain access to books, and it's only the Emir's library was the only source. But how to get there, how to gain access to the Emir's at Samarkand, there was the rumor that the Emir fell ill. He stopped eating. He was kind of fading, and he was like, all doctors had seen him, and then he said, there is a talented boy. And they invited him, and the Emir started eating. He started taking drugs. He actually recovered. The Emir did, and eventually, and he became the famous doctor whom we know. So actually, he had some sort of a delirious condition. The Emir thought he was a bull, and it was time to slaughter him. But then they tried to talk him out of that. He was not a bull. He was not up for slaughter or something. But he would kick everyone out, and he was waiting for the butcher to call him. And Ibn Sina told him, yes, you're a bull. Of course you are. But look, you're so skinny. We need to feed you. Yes, but if we sell you for meat, you're too skinny. And he started feeding him, started giving him drugs and everything. That's how he treated his delirious condition. And then he no longer... So that is a big difference. And it was psychosomatic in nature, and it still very much is. That was the story of Avicenna. And it's more difficult to persuade men that they need something. Like, they want a pill against old age. And it's easier to deal with women. So the secret of male longevity is stress management, right? Now we have one more speaker from the US, and he's not a doctor at all, even though this is sort of a medical panel discussion, but it's when I first saw his presentation at Singularity, I was so impressed.
First of all, you are initiator, you are the head of ReGen Villages. It's self-sustainable community, just for future. It's like futuristic, but it's really working, as I know, yeah? Tell me, please, we are talking for extra life, extra longevity. How we'll survive all this incredible plenty of sapiens on this small planet, because we are restricted in our resources. Can you show us your presentation, please?
Yes, thank you so much for having me this morning. I'll just get my slides going. For us, here at Stanford University, and this spin-off initiative that we founded called ReGen Villages, health starts at home. And we've really been looking quite a long time at the fact that cities are vibrant and wonderful, but they're also very brittle in terms of infrastructure. So to look just outside of cities, to look at this idea of new developments that can combine the natural world in order to create the circumstances for bioavailable nutrition, soil-based farming that is organic, that is biodynamic, that is also connected with controlled environment farming, so we have year-round production as well. At your doorstep, this is access and agency to what we need to thrive and to flourish. So these systems, by the way, are fully circular. You have variety of protein sources for adapting and having healthy diets. We've looked at also the metabolic integration of neighborhood infrastructure, that there's actually a symbiosis that we are disassociated from as a species, right, from the natural world, but that we can use machine learning to both design and then operate these self-reliant neighborhoods that have been proven. My research is almost 15, 16 years, case study research of these beautiful, healthy neighborhood communities with what's called blue zones, where people are living to 100, 110 years old, never seeing doctor, never taking pharmaceuticals. It's the approach to life that we as a species used to have on Earth up until about 1950. So this concept really of having at your doorstep what you need: clean water, clean food, renewable energy, waste to resource management, and really it's about, the key word for us is resiliency in dynamically changing environmental, health, and now economic times. That these communities of strength are in the peri-urban and the rural areas, right? That we can actually rejuvenate these places and bring back this kind of long-term healthy life for all of the people, inhabitants in these communities. And moreover, that when you age in place, that you're part of these communities, not senior living, not assisted living, but babies and strollers and prams meeting these elderly people with the walkers. And there's this concept of the circularity of life, that we're connected to the story arc of life. That we understand also that mobility plays a big role in human health and longevity. That this idea of autonomous mobility, especially in car-free neighborhoods, no driveways, no garages, nothing to fear about roads and cars, can also increase and improve how we live. So the concept really is this whole idea of social and affordable access to these kinds of communities. There's an urgent housing crisis right now on Earth. We have to marry that with this kind of neighborhood infrastructure. So ReGen Villages, again, I'm happy to be here early in the morning from Stanford University, the Stanford Flourishing Project specifically, but also this ReGen Villages initiative, which is this spin-off company. We founded as a Dutch holding company, building these neighborhoods around the world effectively, quickly, changing policies. There's an economic and a health incentive. So with that, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to present and be part of this wonderful panel.
Я думаю, что с помощью различных технологий.
So I think that with the help of technology, and the biggest question that I often ask is that now we are nearly 8 billion living on this planet, that a couple of decades will have reached 10 billion, and that will be out of resources of this planet. Now, we increasingly realize that with this by changing our attitude to the planet, we can actually extend our life expectancy. We don't have to apply any anti-social measures of containing population growth. There is hope that we can live healthier and more fulfilling lives with stress management techniques. And stress management techniques are arguably the most important piece of preventive medicine, because most medicine we can hunt down the root cause, and that is that it's simply the body loses its resiliency, its ability to fight back when attacked by cancer cells, by other conditions. But because when we live very emotionally charged, emotionally laden lives, it's something that's we need techniques to decompress through meditation, maybe from some astrological practices, anything that helps keep up your resilience. And I have no questions in my chat bot. Any questions from the audience, or is this technology failed me? What can you tell me if you have any questions to ask to our speakers? And if I'll be passing them the mic around. Anything? Any questions from the audience? None? Not. I'm from Epicenter, the DIY chain in Ukraine. So we attended an interesting meeting discussing the future, and somebody spoke about 3D printers printing human organs, and in a matter of a decade or something, and they're just as spare parts for the human body. You did not speak to that. Is that something that's coming? And then they will be sold on our shelves at our DIY, apparently, those spare parts. So we've been looking forward to seeing this technology eventually take the next phase, and we are eagerly waiting for an announcement by a company. Yes, we have printed a human organ. Now, but this gap between prototypes and launching a technology in production use, it's actually a very conservative sector. Even many medical doctors don't even own a mobile phone. They don't have any use for it. It's not that they're crazy or anything. They're that conservative. That gap is sort of shrinking, but then we used to have 30 years between the drug being initially developed and when it hits the shelves. But now it's certainly a lot shorter. But human organ printing is a good idea, but there are some technical difficulties which we are grappling with. It's not the technology we'll see in the next decade, maybe in the next 50 years. But now, we can only grow a small unit, a couple of cells to build a liver. But how to create a fully functional liver is something that research still continues. We are still learning how it all works. But it's actually to print something that will not work, will not be viable. It's not something that we want. But you can buy an artificial heart, one that will work for 18 months, just to tie it over, and then you get a new one installed, basically. And then we had an Israeli professor who is actually exploring 3D printing of human tissue, but it's clinical trials and years of it. But we are very eagerly looking forward to seeing it become part of our lives. I'm Tatiana. I'm the founder of a chain of hunting rifles stores selling hunting rifles, and it's some people hold the view that come 2050 we will stop aging. People who have money to buy themselves infinite lives. It's actually, but it's now. But we know that 3D printing now is capable of printing bones and things for beauty products but look, not a single human body has been printed to operate within the human body. It's it's still wishful thinking. Maybe in a future not so distant. Now I have a printer in my office. It can hardly print 100 pages. I would not hire it to print me a new heart. So look, it's maybe come 2050. Over the past 70 years, human life expectancy has increased by 30 years on average. Out of all mammals, we live the longest. But last century, the key to success was antibiotics, fighting germs, vaccination, that's the thing. And the key to extending life expectancy further is fighting degenerative diseases, fighting aging, and conditions related to aging. So are you frustrated that will be only available to the wealthy? Look, it's how things begin. The wealthy gain access first, then the Chinese steal it, and they create knockoffs, and then it looks the same, pretty much like the real thing. It's something coming from Novartis. So don't.
Let me quickly, make a comment on this, because I think it's a really, really, really good question. Don't expect, exchange parts for your body in 2050. There's a story I wanted to tell you. I was at a conference already 10 years ago, and they had something called Resveratrol, right? You may know it. It's a superoxide dismutase inhibitor. Superoxide dismutase is an enzyme that people thought is responsible for aging. So this thing worked in animals, a few, studies. The person sold it for $500 million, I think, to GSK, a big pharmaceutical company. And everybody thought, oh, wow, longevity, wonderful. This thing did not work, right? They did other studies. It failed. And resveratrol, that's the good news, right, for tonight, is in red wine, yeah? And at that conference, somebody said, oh, how much red wine would I have to drink, to have your concentrations of resveratrol? And the founder said, well, looking at the person, even you, was a heavy, strong man, even you couldn't drink it, it would be 3 hectoliters, so 300 liters of wine per day. So hectoliters of wine, right, may not help you. Resveratrol didn't help you. You will not have exchange part of your body. Take care of your body, right? Do prevention yourself. This is the best thing you can do, because living 200 years without quality of life and without a functioning body, that's not worth it. Enjoy life and do the best you can.
Еще вопросы? Да. Там вот вопрос.
We've been Lasse Rana Sinichkina of Artsinger. We're a law firm, and we've talked at quite some length about longevity in terms of keeping up your physical health. I would like to address mental health, and recently and increasingly, there's this information overloading, and it's like we now consume so much more information than 10 years ago. So has any research been done to measure the effect of that informational overloading and how it's affecting our health and our longevity? From the viewpoint of female health, there's been quite a lot of research showing that intellectual strain increases female longevity. Well, it's good to learn for women, that's for sure, and men probably too. There's been quite some research measuring intellectual exercise and learning a foreign language, learning poetry, is as a treatment for menopausal postmenopausal conditions, and those that well, actually it's helping. Women switch gears, they start learning poems, and they're no longer experiencing those wild fluctuations of their emotional, physical state. So mental exercise is good. It supports a healthy hormonal balance. Now, in men, I hope that everyone will agree, I'm not an authority on this, I don't have, so it's okay. Men should keep courting women as they learn poetry and round, and there's research showing that the higher your level of education, the longer you're expected to live. There is a direct correlation between the two, but I understand that the question was about overloading. of too much information. You need to stop and decompress and procrastinate people. It's a bad word, but it's actually, if you do it in a healthy way, if you are taking a day off, do not plan anything. And it's not that you need to learn French overnight or something. But our brain gets adjusted to that tempo. Lots of genes responsible for neuroplasticity, and that connectol, the one that's created, it's highly adaptive to your speed of life. And our pace of life, 30 years ago, it would have been inconceivable. But we're getting used to it. The only thing is that we lose our ability to do things slowly. It's because you need to process so much information. If you're reading a book, you the pre-reader. It's okay, what is this book about? And then you drop it. Yes. And then I think that we've got to learn to put up or accept this path of evolution. This is a philosophical question that I've given a lot of thought to. The world's moved on. Our children are different from us. They're learning at a much faster pace. And at some point, we will probably grow to appreciate this philosophy in Homo Deus. We are a self-inventing mind. It's and create self-sustainable communities that James spoke about. That learning to create an abundant surplus. All these things that we'll need to learn to adapt. It's actually lengthier lives, and it will not come as something unusual that we see that the pace of life is so fast around us. Yes, it's women and poetry. I think I forgot my question. Now, when in doubt, read poetry and do sit-ups. Okay. And a couple of weeks ago, there was this headline about Jeff Bezos with a number of partners has invested in a life management startup. I understand the technology is about rejuvenating cells to the state of stem cells. Can you speak about this technology in more detail, and do you think it has any prospects? Unfortunately, all those people who possess that technology, they're already part of that startup that Bezos invested in. And it's actually shielded by confidentiality, the secret of that startup. And it's as opposed to so many bubbles there. That is a genuine one. All leaders, Steve Howard, the person who's come up with the method of measuring aging, is he's actually a candidate for the Nobel Prize. He's come up with the idea of a genetic clock measuring your aging from day to day. Maybe you've grown older, you've grown younger, maybe. And the people who, Professor Yamanaki, who's come up with the cell reprogramming factors, you can take a cell from an old body, reprogram it, and rejuvenate that cell. If you do this, you take a young person and you do the same. So you can take all those cells, you create mincemeat. It's going to be shapeless, young but shapeless. But how to create that technology that now already works on the cell level, that we know this. We know how to rejuvenate a single cell. And the biggest challenge is how to take this mincemeat and give it shape and create a human being, a younger human being. That is basically a brief review of 30 years of research into this over the past 30 years. So that's just to give you the gist of what this is all about. Now, any more questions now? Alexander Goncharuk, thank you for this great panel. I have a very concrete question. Okay, men need solutions. Okay. You as experts, the question to you, are there any people left other than those now who are now part of the Bezos startup? Any opinion leaders, clinicists, experts doctors, professors, whom it could be, who you could recommend to read and maybe adopt some of their advice to slow down aging. There's a lot of information. Some say you should fast. Some go, you should take this pill or that pill to extend your life expectancy. Who do you think we should listen to? It is all highly personal. The human body is so unique, and how and its complex structure, and that's something that Thomas spoke. The current age is the age of imprecise medicine, but we are moving towards those statistics. Well, it's good to eat less, yes, but this is not enough as a model. Any advice? So why I am a cardiologist? I love my segment of medicine because our guidelines tend to be very precise. And then, okay, if you beat down your cholesterol level, then you can expect your life expectancy to grow by a certain percentage. If you catch a clot early and you stent it, then you can increase that person's life expectancy. It's something that Thomas is probably best placed to address this, because this is precision, or they call it tailored medicine. Something that is bespoke as a suit. That we are entering an era where we will no longer get generic health advice.
Question is exactly to the point, and Nadiia explained it really, really well. I would like to make two concrete examples regarding diet. I'm a big fan of keto and paleo diet because I think sugar is probably as bad as fat, right? Too much fat is not good. And glucose is also, too much glucose is also not good, right? So watching your diet is an important piece, but now it comes to personalization. And my favorite example is the following. If you want to be fit, right, and live 100 years, for you, it may be green tea and yoga, and for me, it may be red wine and running a marathon. I chose the red wine because I like that better than the green tea. But I think it's very different from person to person, and the problem we have is you have to try it out, what works for you, right? And you can't try, am I going to be 100 years, and then you die at 80, bad luck, you don't have a second try. So we need to develop the biosignatures, and here I'm going towards the forward and what we just heard. We need to understand the clocks we have in our cells. We need to understand if we can rejuvenate the cells and then have the complexity of the system so that the complexity in your body still works. And they have done experiments where people inject GLP-1 analogs, right? There were, I think, SGLT2 inhibitors, metformin was part of this, some hormones, and they stopped the genetic clock to go further, right? That exists, highly experimental, still running these things. My last recommendation, be careful and do not expect miracles.
Thank you. I have a question for James. James, tell me please whether you will use personalization of nutrition in your concept. Whether it will be suitable, then my house, for example, will be surrounded exactly with plants I need, or something like this. Whether you think about it.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And the truth is, I want to just go back to this most important point, which is how disassociated we are from our natural world, and that we have to reconnect with the soil and with our farming that's right at our doorstep in order to really fully understand how that relates to our health individually. Where we grow and how we build these communities is culturally sensitive as well to diets and to tradition. So the concept really is biodiversity, that we have to look at this 12 to 14 inches of topsoil and make sure that that is restored, that it's healthy, because without that 12 to 14 inches of topsoil around the earth, then we will not survive as we know it. So first and foremost, we have to really be focusing on how to create these kinds of communities that can supply what we need in safe and resilient ways, because what we're seeing now around the world is an incredible disruption to supply chains. Shelves are going bare, in-time production is slowing down, ports are being blocked, and so we have now a renaissance, if you will, this opportunity to go back to where we were pre-1950 and look at these self-reliant, strong neighborhoods that are connected to these stronger communities through town infrastructure. And then through that, we have the ability to be capable of withstanding both climate anomalies and health anomalies. And now, because of this conference, we're talking about economic downturns and shifts, which are going to be tectonic. We have to be doing this urgently right now.
Thank you so much. У нас есть еще вопросы?
Those girls running around with the mics will be the healthiest of us at the end of this session. Yeah. You spoke about meditation, and Joe Dispenza is now exploring the effect of meditation on the human body. So we still want to believe miracles are possible. Can meditation heal? Who is that directed at? Can meditation heal? Yes? There's research out there that there was this great functional MRI technique when highly stressed hospice staff, and it's indeed that theirs is a very difficult job, they were offered to enroll in curtain-free meditation course. It's pretty simple to practice, but it's those fine movements of the fingers. Actually, dopamine detox is something very fine. It's the Japanese, then they write hieroglyphs, and it's enough to practice this for 15 minutes, and they measured before and after using a functional MRI of the brain. And the picture was very different. That the neuromediators actually turned around, and as Socrates once said, learn to control yourselves. So what happens in a lab environment, the most unique thing is immunotherapy and cancer research, because the disease that is most feared, well, it's actually, cancer is not the biggest killer. What kills us is cardiovascular diseases, and then which is we often pursue unhealthy lifestyles. What is going on now is a revolution in medicine when cells are taught to fight cancer cells. But there's also lots of research about how meditation affects cancer cells. It's holobiome, it's our virome and microbiome, how they're coexisting, and our neural connections, our past experience, our ability to mentally tune out when under stress. All this is certainly affecting our life expectancy. Well, in principle, there's research and telomeres and how they get shorter under stress and how they get longer. How they, Elizabeth, there was a Nobel laureate who's done groundbreaking research in this, and it's how meditation is affected. Many of these publications are controversial. Some claim there's a pronounced effect, some claim there isn't. Well, it's very hard to check if somebody is meditating, they're just asleep. And it's, well, why not? If somebody closes their eyes, how can you prove that it's very hard to prove that they're actually meditating, but the most non-religious and secular meditations that when you initially just concentrate on your own breathing and some internal processes in your body. It's actually shown very impressive results in unbundling those mental knots in your head. And it's not only meditation, but when people's attitude towards life is a predictor of how long your life will be. When some US psychologists asked to recount their life stories, so and those who describe their life using more positive words like happiness, out of this big cohort, that they all had pretty much the same milestones. They went to school and university and everything, but some described it in more jovial and cheerful tones, and some not. But okay, we need to sit and wait until they die, and if they reach 95 or older, just to prove that those describing their life more optimistically tend to live longer lives. And nature picks those who appreciate what they have, where they are, and they endow them with a longer life. And it's something that fine motoric movements, it's important when we speak about survival courses, or things like knitting, and even painting. It's like now it's in vogue. Painting, drawing. It's a a very important pastime. It's actually emotionally, it helps you. It operates on a subtle biological level. Yes, I see. I'm from the Chamber of Commerce of Latvia in Ukraine. Are you aware of balanced consumption of salt and not only cooking salt but other salts? Are you aware of that experience? Is the country ready to embrace this technology to extend life expectancy in Ukraine? This is one of the simplest techniques to extend life expectancy, to prevent, you limit sodium and you increase potassium, and this improves because arterial hypertension is the product of over-consuming salt, and some people may have excellent BP while eating a lot of salt, but at the same time, to some, this is critical. When we're seeing this overall reduction within the entire population, this only goes to show that reducing salt consumption has a very pronounced health effect. And number one target is reducing your body mass. Nothing, okay, stress, and fat. Stress and fat are big killers. And they are also connected. It's just what do we do when we get tired? We start stress eating. Yes? So it's actually a healthy diet is very smart. We scheduled to have Mr. Radutsky as one of the panelists, and he is concerned with this One Health project to promote preventive medicine, and it's supermarkets and salt. It's like it should have their health warning. Overconsumption shortens your life expectancy, as they do on packs of cigarettes, and it could save a life. Yes. Now it's actually smoking is really something that we now seeing less of, and this is actually it's because of those health warnings and people discussing this very openly. A lot of my patients have quit smoking. Maybe it's awareness, mindfulness, it's something, because smoking, if we look at what smoking, how it harms this is a pranayama kind of breathing technique when you deeply inhale. And the smoker, actually, what they seek relaxation. And it's not that, okay, they should be encouraged to switch to some Vedic practice, but those who begin breathing exercises, they quit smoking. And those nicotine patches, it's something that could help you transition out of smoking. But much depends on whether you want to do it. It's some people, if they want to do it, they get their first heart attack and they quit smoking. Or somebody dies because they've had a stroke, something.
We all agree, right? Some people still do it. Let me add to your concrete question on salt. Nadiia summarized it perfectly. Overconsumption of salt is not good. I've done, actually, that's why I'm talking, a lot of research on this, right? On salt-sensitive hypertensives, that's very prominent in African Americans in the US. This is a subtype talking about precision medicine. But I have done a very broad and very insightful study in Mongolia, because in Mongolia, people eat a lot of salt, yeah? And in Mongolia, the overconsumption of salt, it has a lot of effect on health, on longevity, our topic, but people don't want to reduce salt. They're used to it, they love salt. Salt is good, it makes a taste, right? And this is something that is very problematic to change behavior. And the good news is you have a really good spectrum for salt intake, right? So you can eat quite a bit, right? Or not so much. That doesn't change, but when you hit a threshold, then, you know, it goes like in Mongolia, stroke incidence and so on is really, really high. So less salt is good, but don't overdo it, you know? You can still use salt. Overconsumption, that was Nadia's, you know, thing in a summary. Too much salt is never good, and less salt is always better.
It's always bad. Все, мы заканчиваем. Ну, давайте еще один вопрос.
One last question. I have a question from a slightly different perspective. Maybe it's not immediately pertinent to this discussion. Yes, we all want to increase life expectancy, but quality of life sooner or later begins to deteriorate as older people contract incurable diseases. Why do it? Why increase life expectancy? Is it fair for somebody to just decide to go? Maybe they're tired of their life. Euthanasia. And do you think that the human has the right to be born? They should probably have the right to pass, having reached a certain age. Euthanasia probably should be allowed. Well, this is hard. I understand that in Switzerland, euthanasia is allowed, right?
Yes, it's allowed in Switzerland. I don't want to comment on this topic because this is a philosophical topic and it would take us at least a few hours to properly discuss.
So
but your point is well taken.
Вы знаете, мы сами хозяева своей судьбы.
You see, we are masters of our own destiny. But what I can tell you, I have several patients, they are nearly 100, and they have now limitations because of their old age. But they never told me they want to pass prematurely. Okay. Unless the person is in very much pain, and this is why euthanasia, that's why it exists, they feel fine. But the future of medicine is what we are working to create, to increase life expectancy while not losing quality of life. But euthanasia should be certainly available when life becomes unbearable because as the person is in too much pain and their condition is too dreadful. I would like to thank you for this panel discussion. I'm getting signs from the back that we should already wrap up.